The Me&Him podcast. Well, welcome back to the Me&Him podcast. It's me, Jason, and my dad, Matt. Hi, Dad.
Hi, son. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. We've both had interesting days. We're an interesting weekend, I believe. Just having a bit of a chat earlier.
We're an interesting
What's going on?
bloody family.
Interesting family. What's going on with you?
Well, I had a totally free weekend mapped out, and I was so much looking forward to it because I was busy this week. Oh, did I tell you last night I went to see Led Zeppelin 4?
Led Zeppelin what?
Their classic album, Led Zeppelin 4, performed by the Australian Rock Collective, who were very, very good because...
No, you didn't tell me.
A few months ago, and I hate cover bands, I saw this outfit I never heard of before was performing at the Palais Theatre. And they were,
you like the Palais, don't you?
Yeah, and they were doing Dark Side of the Moon. And I thought, this is bullshit.
Right.
Anyway, I did some research. And
you got the Pink Floyd shirt on, so yeah, you're a purist, right?
Yeah. Sent to me by your sister, by by.
Yeah. For anyone, I'll make sure this is captured on one of the reels so people can see
the dark side of your mum.
All right, yeah. So continue.
And I'll just go back to the Pink Floyd episode.
Yeah.
And because major artists overseas had said these guys are good, I bought a couple of tickets and I took my friend Danny with me. And of course, we've played Dark Side of the Moon since the 70s. And we know every single track and every single note and so forth. And we know that nobody could do as well as, Waters and... Gilmour,
yeah. He was a virtuoso.
But we thought, they've got good press, so let's give it a go. And the first half of the show before the 20-minute break was the whole of the pink side of the dark side of the moon. Yeah, I know. It's funny.
That could be a new album too.
There are two
pink side of your mum? No, we won't go there.
No, definitely not. What I know, I won't repeat to you.
No, all right, sorry. Let's finish the Pink Floyd because I want to get back to Led Zeppelin.
Okay, and we were astounded. It was note perfect. It was as if we were in the studios with Waters and Gilmour and the team.
It's hard.
And the two of us looked at each other and went, "Are you on drugs? No. Are you on drugs? No." It was just that perfect.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the show, they did Medals. Also, they did, what's that classic track from Medals? Echoes.
Yep.
And they did Comfortably Numb, and they did, We Don't Need No Education, another Brick in the Wall. And it was absolutely flawless. So we thought, hell, they're doing the classic Led Zeppelin album, and Robert Plant's voice is difficult to replicate. It's one of those unique voices. Thought we'd give it a go. They did very, very well. They weren't as perfect as when they did Dark Side of the Moon, but it was so close. And once they'd finished the album, they had a break. And then they went into Led Zeppelin songs they were having fun with, but they were having fun with because they liked them, not because they were doing their interpretation.
Right.
And the second half was a real Monty.
Yeah, and just for those listeners who don't know the backstory, Dad has been an avid concert goer since you were, a teenager, young, in your 20s, I guess?
Oh, I don't know. It's probably heading towards 1,000 now.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I don't know how, A, he has the stamina to keep going to these things at your age, but B, how you can afford it. And see how you can suffer that inconvenience because it's hard to go to those things and everyone piles out, thousands of people, and you're trying to get a cab, and I don't know, I find it a little bit of a hassle unless I absolutely love the artist. I don't want that inconvenience, but you don't seem to mind it.
Son, I've had so much experience, I just roll with the punches.
Okay. Well, speaking of rolling with the punches, Dad, my weekend's all completely changed, and I was really looking forward to going and seeing my son and spend some time with him in Sydney and hanging out and having dinner and just shooting the breeze and everything. Had a few other things lined up, booked accommodation, had it all sorted. He rang me last night, into the evening and said he was really, really sick. And I was like, oh, wow, I've booked so much around it. I don't even know if I can change it. And when I got home, I thought to myself, hang on a minute. The reason I'm going there was to see him, and I booked everything around it. there's no point going and doing all these other things if the core of it isn't going to happen.
Precisely.
So I got on the phone. I was pretty tired. It was late in the evening. I lost, ended up losing one of the bookings for the hotel because it was within 24 hours. I changed one other, postponed a few other things that I was doing, and by the time I crawled into bed, I'd done like half a dozen calls and texts and emails, and I'd largely moved things, and I want him to be better, obviously, and I want to see him when he's healthy and strong. I don't want him to feel guilty that he's changed anything for me. But so I went, okay, I got a free weekend now. Like, oh, that's changed. Well, I got no idea what I'm going to do.
Yeah, let's screw up Dad's weekend.
Yeah, that's right. What are you up to, Dad? Let's get another episode knocked out. No, well, yeah, that was one idea I had. Definitely, I'm like, let's get another one in the bank. But I also just jumped on the bike. Apparently it's going to be raining tomorrow. I jumped on the bike. Thought, I'll get out for a bike ride, and oh my God, Dad, I went to the most beautiful location. I must have done 20 k's. And I'm not a cyclist. I have a mountain bike and I put music on and I just go off track and have some fun. But I found the most stunning vista down in one of the lakes here in Port Macquarie, and there was no one around, and it was just beautiful. It was calm. I sat there for, maybe 20 minutes just taking in the breeze and the air, and there was hardly any noise. It's the sound of silence. And I was just like, well, you know what? I may not have been able to do what I really was planning on doing, but I just feel so grateful to be able to be sitting here right now on this lovely day with the sun glistening off the water. And I thought, well, this is actually exactly where I need to be. So it's nice when you can pivot, I guess, and you still enjoy the new thing that pops up.
That's true, but you've gone from having a beautiful time, a nourishing, rewarding time with your son, to having a beautiful connection with nature, which is just as rewarding. Absolutely. And nourishing. And the fact that it was unexpected made it even more amazing.
It was. Yeah. So it's been a thank you for taking some time out and rearranging your weekend for doing one of these. So we've got some really good stuff to cover. We've actually been doing, I think we've done 10 episodes now talking about your life and throwing a few sort of bits of wisdom in between, I guess, and me having a few jabs at you along the way.
I didn't hear anything like that at all.
Well, yeah, well, it's all fun until someone gets hurt, right? And then, but now we're getting to an interesting point where you've had the kids, we've had us, and obviously the marriage doesn't last as long as maybe the initial, like many was it over 2 out of, where at least over 50% of marriages don't go the way people think. So we are going to explore that in this next segment. You ready for that?
I'm ready for anything, son.
All right, let's bring it on. The Me&Him podcast. So we've certainly covered a lot of ground about your background, about grandma, granddad, even about you and mum meeting, and then obviously having kids. And I think that's where we left it last time. Was that it, Dad?
Something like that, yeah, creating the brats.
Creating the brats. There's no coincidence you had a nightclub called The Brat, right? You're like,
it was just a confirmation of life's
it was
process.
A universe, eh? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and obviously I was a brat because I have heard from you and Mum. I was crying all the time, drove everyone crazy.
Oh no, your sister started it.
Oh, did she? I took her lead.
Yeah, you did.
So look, I'm interested in exploring that a bit further, but I also wanted to see if we can squeeze in this next segment about also what happened after the breakup too, because obviously, I've got stuff to talk about from my perspective, but you had your own thing going on as well. So I'm just going to set that up and let you run with it however you wish.
Sure. Thank you.
Does that mean you're running with
Well, I was just reflecting, son.
Okay.
When we're young and fit and enthusiastic, we have expectations that life is going to be a bunch of flowers, bowl of cherries forever.
That we're special too, right? Like, life's going to treat me well.
Well, we are special. Every individual on the planet is special in one way or another.
Sure. That's a different way of looking at it than the ego, I guess, but yes.
Yeah, and in the West, of course, everything is structured around ego. The East has a completely different way of looking at things.
Sure.
I mean, there's corruption and beauty everywhere. It's just harder to find the latter than it is to find the former. Okay, So a young married couple with children we definitely wanted, and dealing with these.
Glad you said that.
Well, with the possible exception of you.
Yeah, I feel like a bit of an accent sometime, but all right.
You set yourself up for that, son.
Yeah, okay, all right, you got me. All right, keep going.
And it's a difficult time for young people because no one has ever trained them in this process. You just jump in and you have to somehow or another find your way out of the deep end of the swimming pool. And so there are inevitable tensions, as there are in every relationship. We didn't know because we were so busy, living the 60s dream or mythology, if you like, that it takes a toll on individuals. And if you have flaws in your character stemming from your background, they get magnified.
They're exacerbated. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so your mother and I loved each other very much.
Sorry, just on that, there's an expression that I remember hearing that, when you squeeze an orange, what's inside comes out. And it's that sort of thing when you put pressure on something, that's when it shows up. You think you got it together until you've applied pressure.
It's a bit of an extreme example, but I take your point.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that faults in our upbringing, which weren't necessarily of our making, they were to do with the way our parents treated each other and consequently the children, made our relationship untenable. And thinking of parting was such a frightening experience.
Yeah. I think it is for everyone when you've invested into this relationship thinking, yep, this makes sense. I've played the field. This is the person. I'm going to have kids. I'm going to do all this responsibility. We're going to lock it all down. And then suddenly it doesn't look like it's going to work. Wow. It's confronting.
And you think it's the circumstances, the baby's crying, keeping up at night with their teething and so forth. So stresses and how they evolve and where they come from happen to all of us, different times for different reasons. But one thing I wanted to touch on before I go any further is the role of grandparents. Now, we lived in a different city to both sets of grandparents, your mother's parents and my parents. And my parents, being old-fashioned, drove all the way down from Auckland to Wellington.
Was that 9 hours or something?
Oh, yeah, it's 9 hours. And those days it was an arduous drive. And they would stay elsewhere because there wasn't enough room in the place where we lived in Wainuiomata. And they regarded you children as very, very special and, played with you and gave you little treats that, young parents hate, like give
all
me
the sugary stuff.
All the sugary stuff you give the grandchildren.
It's only got worse,
the grandchildren love it. And the parents go, oh my God, another sleepless night.
It is a privilege. It's a grandparent privilege, no doubt.
It is. And your mother's parents had a different structure. We hardly saw them. And however, your maternal grandmother came down to be with us when you were born, which was a great thing. I mean, and Kitty was a lovely, lovely, lovely woman. But there's a term in psychology called imprinting. And imprinting is about the things you absorb from your environment, and particularly when you're young, from your family, who are your primary connections, and they stamp you as being part of that cultural heritage,
sure,
part of that behavioral mechanism. You become adjusted to the foods that they give you, and so
it's like nature versus nurture.
Yeah, it shapes your dietary preferences and everything. It's so powerful, and of course, when we're young, we don't even understand that process is operating.
Sure.
It's only later when you bump into people from a different social, not necessarily cultural, but social and or cultural background, you realize that what they love from home is completely different from what you love from home. And if you're able to share with each other, you broaden the range of experience for everyone.
Totally.
Yeah. So
how does that relate to the grandparents coming down?
Oh, well, the grandparents are a very important part of it because my grandparents cooked the foods that I loved.
Right, okay.
My parents, I beg your pardon, which are one set of your grandparents. And, of course, your mother's parents cooked the foods that they loved. And we came from completely different food heritages and backgrounds, although we were, white Caucasians, etc.
Well, some Mediterranean, some more from the Anglo side, yep.
Yeah, but just skipping forward in time, you asked me about the breakup, and it really was a consequence of things which we didn't understand, which had come from our different family backgrounds. And the real trigger had nothing to do with infidelity or anything like that. It was just that we got to a point where we loved our children. We loved the concept of marriage, but we couldn't stand each other.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's uncommon, unfortunately. It's and there's also a growth part, I guess, aspect to this, isn't there? That you so can I just add one thing on this that just made me think of just by telling me that? I was chatting to someone the other day, and this analogy keeps coming back around to, if you've got a seed, right? All the potential is in this seed, this oak tree, right?
Absolutely.
It's this little oak seed. And if you put it into the ground and you water, it's nice fertile soil, and you water it properly and the sun's there and everything.
You nurture it. Yes.
Yep, you nurture it, or nature nurtures it, and it grows to its fullest extent, to this beautiful, strong tree that gives you shade and is just resplendent with all its color and leaves. But if you miss some of that, if it doesn't get water, if there's a drought on, if there's another tree encroaching its shade, if there's all these other, the sun's not out as much, the tree is stunted in its ability to fully thrive, right?
Excellent metaphor, son.
Yeah, so I think it relates to us as children. And I've met some really well-grounded individuals who have had great high-value relationships with people and chosen great partners, and they've stayed together. And I've kind of done a bit of a study from afar going, how the hell did you work this out? Then I've looked at their lineage and I've looked at their upbringing and I've looked at the love and the stability and all these other things. And I've thought, wow, there's no coincidence, is there, that when you have all the right ingredients, you get the full potential of that individual. And I'm not saying things are perfect, but they certainly optimize themselves.
You're correct. And you brought up a thought which I didn't believe in at all with my Western upbringing, and that's arranged marriages. And the older I've grown and the more cultural contact I've had, with social frameworks which are completely different to our Judeo-Christian one, the more I've realized there is actually some goddamn merit to arranged marriages.
Isn't it funny, because that topic's come up with Mum getting this lovely young lass's number for me, and I'm like, Mum, are you trying to arrange a relationship because I haven't done too well on my own? Maybe there is something to it. I'm up.
Well, I mean, your mother picked a real Monty there.
So anyway, not going to go down that rabbit hole, but so I agree with you. I guess I'm just aligning to the fact that I think many of us are playing out this dysfunction that we don't even know we have.
Yes.
We get into a relationship, it gets intense, kids are added, it gets more intense, the cracks and the crevices start to show. We don't even know we're acting out of emotion. And then suddenly it all falls apart and we don't even know why, but we just think it's the other person's fault for some reason. And it's usually us.
It's a shared responsibility.
It's a shared responsibility,
you don't cognize it consciously at the time. And I'll tell you one other thing, son.
Sure.
Because of the way my father treated my mother, and things got pretty intense between your mother and me, there is no way that I would ever allow myself to put a hand on her. Mm-hmm. And that's why I am so passionately against domestic violence.
Yeah. So just before we round out this segment, Dad, obviously things didn't continue. I think you were married 8 years or something from memory.
Yes.
And I was 3, I think, when you broke up. Damien was just born. Oh, sorry, my brother was just born. And so then obviously there was a whole change of scenario from there.
Very much so.
Just lead me into that next part of the transition for you. What was that like for you?
Incredibly painful. I won't begin to go into it. It's like a soldier coming back from the war who just doesn't want to talk about it because of the intensity of the pain.
Yeah.
It so happened I went looking for a new job because the way the marriage was falling apart impacted upon my ability to do my work with the large corporation that I was with. And So I got this job, and it turned out to be with a major New Zealand company, but it was in a different part of the country.
Right.
And I took it because I had the skill set, and I moved away, which further distanced me from my about-to-be ex-wife and my 3 lovely children.
Wow. Okay. So I resonate, and I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate about doing this with you, Dad, is you've helped me through a lot of hard times, and you've shared with me many of your hard times. We've been very frank with each other, and we know that many other men and fathers have been through similar experiences, and it doesn't get talked about that much, but it is a silent pain that I've certainly felt like a knife in the guts many times. Just trying to...
that's a good metaphor.
Feeling guilty, missing out, feeling cut off, not knowing how to approach, doing something, not being right, then doing the wrong thing, making a mistake.
That's
sometimes
how we learn, son. Even the people who are wildly successful. So I would alter the mistakes I made.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a learning. It's definitely a journey. All right. Well, I do want to kind of flip it a little bit, lighten it up a little bit, and talk about some of what I experienced as I got older. While you were more of a freewheeling divorced dad, which
by the way I've been for the last 50 years.
That's right, ladies. That's right, 80-year-old single ladies, all the single ladies. All right,
only the rich single ladies, and you've got to be over 65. I'm not into pedophilia.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes, over 65. The beer. That's the floor. All right, let's move on. The Me and Him podcast. I was young at the time.
You were all young.
Yeah, we were all young, and I think I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that it wasn't until I was of an age where my son was the age I was when you guys broke up, I think it was 3, that I realized the impact that it probably had on me. You talked about imprint before, the imprint that it had on me and probably shaped me as an individual thereafter. And look, I've done a bunch of work in that area, as many people have to, right? And this is part of that work too, right? The reconnection and the conversations with you and others. But what I wanted to sort of touch on, and maybe I'm jumping forward a little bit here, but I mentioned again also previously that I worked with you in various ventures. So Mum would take us down to the Chicken Barrel, where you had your own little business down there. I helped at the 24-hour cafe at K Road. I remember cleaning nicotine stains off the pub ceiling at the glue pot when you first took that over, which is the worst job in the world, by the way. I mean, luckily people don't have to do that anymore, but I couldn't believe there was like half an inch thick of nicotine on the ceiling. How does that even...
Why do you think I told you to do it?
Yeah, jeez, it was the shittest job, Dad. Oh my God.
Well, you've got to learn somehow.
Some people started from the bottom. I started from the top, but it was having to be up at a ladder on the roof cleaning nicotine stains. I don't know if that is the top, but whatever. Anyway, so you were managing this pub called the Glue Pot, and you had pretty a bit of success in that area, and credit to you. And I kind of looked up to you in that regard, and it wasn't too far away from where we lived. So to some degree, the circle was starting to close a little bit for me personally. And I didn't know I was going to end up doing hospitality at that stage. I was just making a bit of extra coin, and it was good having you around because you would tell me off sometimes, or you direct me, or you do whatever. But I needed that. I'm a young boy needing some direction.
Yeah, and there's a limit. I mean, your mother worked hard, and she did a good job, but there's a limit to how one parent can handle, especially a mother handling a teenage boy who's rebellious.
That's right. It's so hard for a mother to be mother and dad. I so respect the single mums who do that. I mean, power to you. It's hard enough being a single mother to a female, but to a boy who's reaching puberty and then starting to push the boundaries, who needs some guardrails in. The mother, unfortunately, Mum tried everything. There was all sorts of different punishments, but at the end of the day, I just would say,
yeah, richly deserved, by the way.
Yeah, I richly deserved. I don't deny it, and so I guess where I'm getting to is I I enjoyed that time working with you. I enjoyed making money, and eventually
and giving your mates free drinks
I know,
at
you
my
like talking
expense.
about the free drinks. Well, look, I learned the hard way. I ended up running a stock control company, right, to avoid people doing that in future. The irony is thick here. But I did end up, personally, I found starting to run away from responsibility, and not just because I was a normal teenage boy, because I didn't have sort of a rock solid guidance. We talked about that tree analogy just a bit earlier. I thought that having fun and partying and to some degree pushing all the boundaries was my destiny, right? I didn't even think I would live past a certain age at that point.
Such a very bad example.
I don't know if you set the example. I just think I was unchecked, and it was at that point I was probably just running from a lot of things. And
you used a very important word there, son, unchecked. Mm-hmm. And this is where the father-son balance, on a continuous basis, ours was an interrupted basis. So yeah, I couldn't check you where you needed to be checked. Is so important because teenage boys learning to, that they're strong, that they're capable, and they're hormonal and so forth. And
they're taller than their mums too, right?
Yeah, so exactly, yeah. And they need to be checked. Mm-hmm. And that's where a benevolent father figure comes in and is appropriate.
And also, there comes that feeling that this guy's stronger than me, so he could take me down, or when he's angry, he could hurt me, like that.
Precisely.
Which is a good lesson for life, right? Because that's what's going to happen out there in the sporting field or the pub. If you say something rude or disrespectful, you're going to learn the hard way. And
yes.
So I look.
At least your dad won't king punch you.
Well, that's right. Won't get king.
Even though he may feel like it.
That's right. And generally it would be to try and make sure never do that again for your own good.
Precisely.
So we need that hard line as young men. We need to know where the boundaries are, and sometimes it hurts.
Can I just change the word, if you wouldn't mind, son?
Sure.
We all need, as young men, that firm line. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be hard, but it has to be firm for guidance.
Yeah, I like that. So look, Mum did a great job. I take my hat off to Mum, but I was largely uncontrollable. I would sneak out. I would go get into nightclubs. I would get up to all sorts of mischief. I was very lucky that I guess I skirted around getting into more trouble than I did, albeit I did get into a bit of trouble, and I had some friends that got into even more trouble at the time. And so one of the reasons I felt I needed to leave New Zealand, not because they didn't welcome me there, but I didn't see a bright future the way that things had shaped for me and the circle I was in, and I guess I wanted to some degree reinvent myself.
More of us are lost than are stable. It's only when you come from a very stable family background and you've got a lineage that you respect and honor, and you've been consistently nurtured, as opposed to being the product of a broken marriage, that you can be one of those rare people who goes through life in happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah. It's more the exception than the rule, unfortunately. And I think part of what we're trying to do here, outside of share some stories, have a laugh, maybe share some lessons, is to potentially get conversations going that fills in some of those gaps that were created as all of us came through with our various dysfunctions and traumas and what have you. So I look back and laugh, Dad, and I'm glad I'm stable and my life is good and we've got a good relationship and I've got 4 beautiful kids and I've got a great relationship with my parents and my sister and brother and all that. I've managed to make a success of it, but wow, it was wobbly there for a while, and it always is, I like to be able to laugh about it, but there was some dicey times where things could have gone a different way.
The beauty of what we're doing is, again, to quote Mike and the Mechanics, is we're doing it in the living years. So we've got an opportunity as father and son to say, shit, I wasn't perfect, but here was my set of circumstances. Oh, well, the percentage of that which interacted on me was such and such, and here's my set of circumstances. Yeah. And we can come together in love.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was a fun little trip down memory lane. Speaking of lunch, I'm hungry.
Well, you've got to go and look after your mother, actually.
I've got to go look after Mum. I'm going to take Mum out with her dog. So, hey, look, it's been nice chatting. I'm going to, we've still got an email from Dad section coming up, which I'm really looking forward to. And next episode is going to be the end of season 1. And I would really like, with your permission, to touch on, and how we do it, I'm not sure, but touch on Granddad's later years. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, I really need to tell you about that, son.
That was certainly an interesting podcast, Dad. Highs and lows. We had some lunch together.
Yeah, careful with what you say, son.
You're right. I shouldn't really go any further into that. I'm sure that's going to come back to haunt me.
Yes.
And also just to explore more about that whole separation and the pain involved in that and the lessons that come from that.
There's always pain in separation.
There is,
no matter what kind it is.
Yeah, there is. And so, look, we've got another episode coming up to finish this season off where I'd like to explore a bit more around Granddad and him getting older and how that affected you and things. But we can do that next episode. For now, though, we've got emails from Dad.
Oh, wow. The best part of the show.
Yeah. Emails from Dad. Now, for this one, I went through the archives, and I still got about 50 odd ones outside of the few hundred that have come in since I put those into a folder. And I thought, we've gone down a track of some poems you've done, and we've talked about some songs. It's been very artistic, right? Which it makes it probably sound more artistic than we actually are.
I'm very artistic, darling.
You certainly got the accent, don't you? But this one, I actually laughed out loud when I read it. And I thought, maybe it's time. We had a bit of a laugh. Maybe it's time just to do something a little bit more frivolous. And so yes. I'm going to share. I'm just going to bring it up on screen now. I'm going to share the
joke I sent to you.
The joke you sent to me,
there's always pain in separation.
Even remember it,
no matter. Well, I'm old and useless, as you know.
I'm not saying that. I wasn't judging you. I sometimes like the fact that when you send emails, and I probably don't do it enough in return, to be honest, that sometimes it's just a funny thing that you've seen and you flick it off, and it's short, which is the best for me. So I'll leave this one to you. Try to do it justice.
Thank you, sir. It's called Husband's Call. And if there are any ladies listening, we love you. This is not intended to be disrespectful.
No, not at all. We'd never do that.
Honey, it's me. Male voice talking to female partner. I don't want to alarm you, but I was hit by a car as I was leaving the office. Paula brought me to the hospital. They've checked me over and have done some tests and some x-rays. The blow to my head was severe. Fortunately, it did not cause any serious internal injury. However, I have 3 broken ribs, a compound fracture in the left leg, and they think they may have to amputate my right foot. Wife's response, who is Paula? Yeah. And if you find that hard to believe, you've never been married.
Yeah. So I read it and I was like, oh, where's this going? Then the who is Paula? It actually just speaks to a truth that there is a name mentioned that is potential. And maybe the guys are the same. Are we the same? Ladies, tell us.
Maybe no, we're Neanderthal by comparison.
Right. Yeah. Where's that threat coming from? So, look, I thought that was just a little bit of fun. It doesn't all have to be highfalutin, arts and craft. This was just a good, honest joke, which yes, admittly
and it'll resonate with so many men. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So who's poor? Forget the amputated foot. Who's that woman that you were? Oh man. Well, look, I've got heaps more emails to go through, so we're going to keep that one going. But we're going to wrap this up. We've had a really good chat, and next episode is episode 12, which is our final episode for the season. We'll just have a short break, and then we're going to pick up, and we're going to be picking up and doing more topic-based podcasts. But in terms of next episode, Dad, are you happy to sort of talk to your dad getting older and some of the struggles,
of course,
that you had? Yeah.
But since it's our 12th and it's the end of the series, I think we should both stand in our independent homes, stark naked, while we're delivering it. That's for the ladies.
Jesus. Well, I have been actually working on myself a little bit there, so I'm not totally uncomfortable with that. You maybe it is just another thing about just drop lose the fear. Doesn't matter anymore, right? We're all born naked, we die.
In my case, it doesn't matter anymore.
No, I don't know if we're going to do it naked, Dad. But yeah, okay, fair suggestion, and I'm glad you're thinking outside the box.
We were talking about something humorous,
Yes, we were. And it's better to think outside the box than not be thinking inside a box, right?
Careful. Where you're going with that terminology.
No, I was talking about passing on, all right? Okay, because we're talking about granddad. So next episode, let's do that. Let's not so much tie a bow around it, because I think we're going to revisit a lot of this material and a lot of the stories, and then we can go, there's so many more things to talk about. I think what we've done just in the last 12 episodes is just paint a bit of a story arc around your life, so people get to know you a bit. They get a little bit of a glimpse of me.
Our lives, son.
Our lives.
The whole purpose of this podcast has been for us to talk honestly about everything, the heritage and how we have related positively and negatively.
Yeah.
Before I die. And it's very, very important.
And before I die too, because you never know, right? Like, could be hit by a bus tomorrow.
Well, I keep wishing for that, but never mind.
Yeah, well. All right, well, look, it's been fun, and the big one, next one, so I'll see you soon, and take care.
Same to you. All my love.
The Me&Him podcast.